Week 4 starts and sits. Let's get it started. First up, we got Anthony Richardson. I just want to give you some confidence to start this kid. He's had 35 or more rushing yards in back-to-back games and 2 touchdowns. My man had 18 fantasy points last week and didn't even play the whole game. Look for Richardson to use his legs against the Rams. Sit Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott has not been good at all this year. Quarterback finishes 29, 17, 18, and this is not a good matchup for him. He has the Patriots this week, and he has San Francisco next week. I don't see Dak as a start for a little bit now. If you can't get it done against the Cardinals, it's probably time to move on to another quarterback. 2 quarterback sleepers. Starting off with Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones started the year off with back-to-back weeks of 40 or more rushing yards. I like that. He's also going up against the Seattle Seahawks, who have allowed the 5th most points to the quarterback position when you adjust for the schedule. Fire him up. Next up, Geno Smith. I think that he's going to be a fine play in this game. Going up against the New York Giants, who don't scare you for the quarterback position. Geno Smith has 3 elite wide receivers. I think he starts getting them more involved this week. Did y'all see him talking up Jackson Smith and Jigba last week? Talking about we need you, got to get you more involved. Good for you, Geno. I like that. Keep the young man right. He was elite back in Ohio State. He needs to know that he's about to be that dude at some point. Good on you, Geno. That's a vet move. Keep the young blood spirit up. Wide receivers I love in week 4. Chris Olave. This kid's incredible. I bring up Chris Olave not because you weren't going to start him, but you might have been nervous to start him with Jameis Winston. Don't be. Jameis Winston, with all his interception flaws, he can sling the ball. He did have a 5,000-yard year, and he has thrown for 30 touchdowns in a year. He can get it done. Look at these numbers. Double-digit targets in every game this year. Over 100 yards in 2 out of the last 3 games this year. The only glaring weakness right now is touchdowns. I'm not saying to sit this next player because he's been so dominant, but please temper your expectations. As much as it hurts me to say this, Mike Evans, my dude. Mike Evans is an elite wide receiver, but he just does not play well against Marshon Lattimore. I wouldn't go as far as to say he has his number because Mike Evans is my guy, but Marshon Lattimore is a fantastic cornerback, and he will be all over Mike Evans all week. I'm not saying to sit him, but you should temper your expectations. He's gonna need a touchdown in this game to be a really good play. So I don't think you should sit him, but don't expect him to score 30. Sleeper wide receivers you should start this week. Adam Thielen. Adam Thielen has been fantastic the last 2 games, and his next game is against his old team, the Minnesota Vikings. So you know that's a revenge game. I think Adam Thielen plays well. He would have been one of my starts of the week if Andy Dalton was playing, but with Bryce Young, I'm way less confident. Bryce Young is just not there yet for really carrying an offensive piece. He's good enough to hold up a sleeper, but I'm not sure that he would have as good a game with Young as he would with Dalton. My next sleeper is Tutu Atwell. This might be one of the last best chances you have to play Tutu on a consistent basis. He's been absolutely incredible so far this year. 18, 15, 17. And he's going up against the Colts defense, who's one of the worst defenses against wide receiver. I definitely think that you fire up Tutu Atwell if you need a spot start. And I know he had a bad week last week, but I'm still firing up Nico Collins. Pittsburgh's defense is good on their front line, but they're not good against receivers. The Steelers are allowing the 4th most points against the wide receiver position. I'm firing up Nico Collins and Tank Dell if I need him. Running back starts and sleepers for week 4. Start James Cook. Cook has been excellent this year. In the last 2 games, 123 rushing yards, 98 rushing yards. And he's getting it done in the receiving game as well. 4 receptions, 2 receptions. The only thing that's lacking are the touchdowns. And it does seem like the team wants to use him when they're close. They tend to put in Latavius Murray or Damian Harris. That's definitely a knock on James Cook, but I definitely think he's startable, especially against this Dolphins defense. They've allowed the 4th most points to the running back position when you adjust for schedule. And for my sleepers, one has a really good matchup and the other one doesn't. I just like the storyline and I think he might get something done. I got a feeling. For the good matchup, let's talk about Jaylen Warren. Jaylen Warren has been meh, startable so far this year, but what I really like is, let's look at these targets. 6, 6, 4. I love when running backs get involved in the passing game, and Houston is terrible against the running back, allowing the 5th most points to the running back position. I think for this team to be successful, they're gonna need to run the ball, and Jaylen Warren is going to be involved. His rushes have been increasing every week. 3, 6, 8. If he gets 10 rushes in this matchup and 4 to 6 targets, that's gonna be a sneaky start. This next one is not a good matchup, and start at your own risk. But man, the first time this player plays his own team, gonna be fire. I got a feeling. Ezekiel Elliott had 16 carries last week for 80 yards. He only had 1 target, but week 1 he had 7 targets. I think it's gonna end up somewhere in between with like 3 or 4. But if you can get 12 to 16 rushes from Zeke, and you know they're gonna put him in near the goal line to score on Dallas if they can, Bill Belichick bout that action. Plus, Belichick knows Zeke is a better goal line rusher than Ramondre Stevenson. And it's not particularly close, honestly. If a sleeper running back can get you between 10 and 15 points, they did their job. Running back bust for week 4. Brian Robinson. Man, was he bad last week. From a fantasy football standpoint. From an NFL standpoint, he was kind of fine. He rushed for 70 yards, that's not bad. But for fantasy football, that's 7 points. That ain't getting it done. And he has a tough matchup this week too. In Philadelphia. After they just got smacked around last week, the Eagles are one of the best teams in the league against the running back position. He will be harassed this week. I'd avoid him if I could. Next up, we got a couple tandems. The entire Jets backfield. I don't want to start either one of them. Dalvin Cook, who's been playing terribly, 9-0-6. This is PPR, that's awful. And Breece Hall, who was supposed to be the chosen one. Now, just to be clear, Breece Hall has been struggling not just because he hasn't been getting the rushes he should, even though he had 12 rushes last week and got 18 yards. Ugh. They're going up against Kansas City, and Chris Jones is trying to earn this paycheck, but he's trying to get a bigger one next time, so he's coming for everybody. Breece Hall's gonna have a rough stretch of it. If you're gonna trade for him, I'd trade for him after week 7 when the schedule lightens up a little bit. Right now, I'm really not trying to roll out Breece Hall if I don't have to, because the Chiefs aren't afraid of Zach Wilson. They're gonna stop the run and make Zach Wilson throw against them, and that's just gonna be ugly. I'd sit these running backs if I could. The same as this next group. It's too murky for me. The Baltimore Ravens. Gus Edwards is back, and he should be okay. Gus Edwards has been mediocre at best. Justin Hill has been pretty much touchdown dependent. He was meh against Cincinnati. He was out last week, but with him back, plus having Melvin Gordon in the mix now, I don't know why Cleveland is green on this chart. Makes no sense to me, honestly. I'm tracking the Browns as one of the best defenses in the league, and they're very good against the run. I'm not starting any of the Ravens if I don't have to. If I had to pick, I'd say Gus Edwards, but I really don't want to pick. Hopefully you have alternatives. Tight end starts and sleepers. You were already starting George Kittle, but you should have even more confidence this week that he's gonna have a good play. Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk are both coming off of injuries and may or may not play. George Kittle is an excellent start. They don't always use him, but when they need him, he comes through. I think he comes through this week against an Arizona team that is middle of the pack, doesn't really scare you. And as a sleeper, I have Gerald Everett. Yes, I know. He has not been performing up to expectation. But last week he went 6 for 6 for 30 yards, which isn't great, but in a full point PPR, they get you 9 points. The other tight end has been stealing his touchdowns. With Mike Williams down, I think Gerald Everett is a solid play to get decent volume and a matchup that's really good. The Raiders are one of the worst defenses in the league to go against the tight end position. Fire up Gerald Everett if you need a tight end. Defenses I love in week 4 and a bunch of sleepers. Starting off with the defense I love, the Kansas City Chiefs. Chiefs did well against Chicago, and they're going to do just as well against the Jets. The Jets don't have a good offense, and they do not scare you. Unfortunately, I think the Saints play well against my Bucks. Marshawn Lattimore should have a good battle with Mike Evans, and the rest of that defense is good. I think the Saints are a good play this week, unfortunately. Come on, Bucks, prove me wrong. 3 sleeper defenses this week. The Cincinnati Bengals going up against the Tennessee Titans. Titans have not looked good recently. Derrick Henry's a little banged up as well. well. Next up, we have the Seattle Seahawks against the Giants, who may or may not have Saquon Barkley. If they don't have Saquon, I think they're gonna have a tough time scoring against the Seahawks. Jones is gonna have to use his legs a lot. Now, before I tell you this last one, just know it's gross. It's disgusting, and if you don't gotta do it, don't do it. But if you desperate and nobody else is out there, this team gonna be out there. The Denver Broncos, the once vaunted defense, has collapsed. 3 points against the Raiders, 0 points against Washington. Somehow they got 2 points against Miami. I don't know how somebody scores 70 on you, score any point. Oh yeah, I forgot. They had a touchdown. That'll do it. But yeah, as a defense, I think it's pretty solid. Now that we've gone through our starts and sits, time to do Pigskin Pick'em. Click here if you want to see who I think's gonna win each game this week. Against the spread, of course.